And we are live. How is everybody doing today?
All is
Hello.
well.
All right. Well, we're missing a few people, but we did not want to waste any time. So give us one moment while I have an opportunity to share and also change the platform here.
Definitely. Make sure you share it to your page.
Yes.
And make sure your page is your post is shareable.
Yes. Right out. For now, it doesn't want to. Oh, I have to hit done. Nope. It's not working, guys. Goodness.
Ready, okay?
Yep. Changing it to public now.
Okay.
Got it. Don't know why it's not letting me. I guess. All right, let me go back. Give me one more second. Okay, so it's not going to just put me in Talik on. So, Talik, whenever you. So yeah, it's not going to let me do the layout. So I apologize, but I think you guys might have to just put yourself in the background because I don't know why it's not letting me.
Well, you the host, you will have to put them in the background.
I'm going to say I don't see how to do
Yeah, I
that.
can't put. You have to put them in the background.
So the layout. Well, I don't want to take any more time. I don't know how to do that.
Sorry. So let's just start. Come on, let's just.
All right. All right. Go ahead.
Welcome, everyone. We have NettieLongPoetry and Talik for mental health check-in with your second annual sexual abuse survivor event called What's the Word for Today?
Mm-hmm.
We are streaming live. We have some wonderful panelists that are going to speak on certain words that we have given them. I'm so excited that me and Nettie are here again for a second year. You know, first year, we just something that we put together. It was an idea. And, you know, we hit each other up again. It was like, what's going on for April? You know, we need to do this again. And I'm just so happy. How are you, Nettie? How's your mental?
Doing great. I'm doing great. So without further ado, let's just start. I did say I wanted to start with a poem. And I might end with one, but let's just start with a poem to kind of break the ice a little bit. I chose Why Love for a very good reason, and I'll explain. Why love? Why is love so simple with God, but not with his creation? As a people, we were made by his love. And oftentimes there's no love coming from the very people he created. Why is this such a double standard? I know he gives us the ability to choose, but sometimes I wish love was just, sometimes I wish love was just, I don't know why I got nervous, guys. Sometimes I wish love was just a standard people lived as a way of living. I know he gives us the ability to choose. All right, I'm going to have to stop. I'm so sorry, guys.
You okay?
No, I don't know why I got nervous. But, all right, Lord. Let's just go. Let's just go. Let's just move on. I do apologize, guys. I am going to go ahead and introduce Indica.
Okay. Our first guest that's speaking, right? But before we go
Yes.
to the first guest, Nettie, is okay to be nervous. This is second year. You know, we all got stuff going on. We're all going through stuff. It is okay. Um, this is a place where you can mess up. You know, get it together. It's okay. Telling our stories isn't easy at all. You know, keep telling it over and over again. So it's okay to be nervous. It's okay. We're gonna have a great time. So the first guest is my brother Jeremy. He speaks about child abuse. He uses his own story to break down stigmas and help understand how such a thing can happen. He wants to change the culture on how he could talk about this and what he could plan to do to prevent it happening. Ladies and gentlemen, brother Jeremy.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. And I will second that to Nettie and say it's all good to get nervous when you're talking about something so personal to you, in particular when you are speaking your poem that I know through the very basic knowledge that I have of poetry. Often people are writing poems and putting their heart on the page. So for you to get a little stumble when you're reading it out is completely acceptable and understandable. So good on you for even reading it. So I started raising awareness for child sexual abuse 4.5 years ago now. I started off by sharing my story, and I actually started sharing my story with some close friends to begin with. I had been dealing with the memories of what had happened for about 2 years. And what had happened was it was sexual abuse when I was 8 years old by another man who was trusted by the family. And this abuse went on for 2 years until I was 10 years old. And when I was 25 years old, so 15 years after the abuse had finished, I started experiencing flashbacks. Now, in all of this time, in the 15 years since the abuse had finished, I had never really forgotten about it entirely. Small things would come up that would remind me of it. Something would come up on the news, or somebody would say something in passing in conversation about abuse, maybe, and that would remind me of it. But I just didn't care in those days, in my teenage years, in my early 20s. I just didn't care that it had happened. My life was going really, really well. I was an engineer, had a great career. I was designing supercars for various manufacturers. We have a manufacturer here in England called McLaren. For any car fanatics will know that, a manufacturer in that make. And I had great friends. I was out partying, great relationships, like everything was going cool. So I didn't care about that abuse. I didn't want to face it. I didn't have any desire to address it at all. But in my mid-20s, that changed. Flashbacks, night terrors meant that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that's when I decided to tell a friend. Once I told the friend, I woke up the next morning and I literally couldn't believe how good I felt. It was a complete surprise. I wasn't expecting that reaction in myself. I felt lighter. I felt stronger. I felt like this weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And I really felt this energy that was completely overwhelming in an incredible way. So I continued to tell more friends over the years that went by, one friend at a time. And with each time I spoke, I could feel myself growing in confidence with telling the story. And what was really interesting was each time I told it, I could also feel myself, I could feel the fear of actually saying those words start to dissolve. Like the fear was eating away at the confidence, was eating away at the fear. It made me want to continue. Kept telling more people. Then I started getting interested about what was going on out there. Who else had a story? Who else had a challenge of talking about what happened to them in their childhood? In particular, when it comes to sexual abuse, it's something that's heavily stigmatized, incredibly taboo, maybe one of the most taboo topics that we have in societies across cultures, and also so painful to actually talk about out loud. I started researching online, found websites, Facebook groups, Instagram pages, thousands upon thousands of people telling their stories. I literally couldn't believe it. I started reading them one after another. And I thought, hang on a minute. All these people are really struggling with speaking their story. I've been speaking my story now to many close friends and family members now for 2 or 3 years. And I felt a confidence with it. So I thought maybe I should try and do something with that confidence. Now, what was that going to be? I wasn't sure. But very interestingly, 2 weeks before that, I've been to an open mic night here in London. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to an open mic night before, but it is an event that's open to the public and anybody can go and perform what they wish. You could be a singer and sing your song. You could play an instrument. You could even do comedy. You could read a poem. You could do spoken word. And I thought I could go as a storyteller and begin telling my story to live audiences all around London. So I started doing that, started getting a phenomenal response from live audiences. And then I started not only talking about my story, I started talking about what was going on out there, how it felt to now start speaking and start raising awareness. And that's my word today for this segment that I have here speaking at this conference is awareness. It's all about spreading the word, speaking our stories with strength and courage to inspire others, to encourage others, or to let others know that they're not alone. I continued speaking to live audiences and I decided to start writing posts online, which is what I started doing. I kicked off social media platforms, kicked off a YouTube channel, started uploading videos there, started interacting with my audience more. And 100 followers turned to 1,000 followers, turned to 10,000 followers. I was so surprised. People started following me from all over the world, saying that they were gripped into what I was trying to do with my word, that awareness was now spreading. I now most recently have managed to break into schools. I've been knocking on schools' doors for the past 2 years, trying to get in there to speak to the young people. It's been really, really difficult. But why? You wouldn't have thought for a man that just wants to go around and tell his story that should be difficult. Surely you would expect schools to be like, yeah, come, please come and speak to our young people. But that's not actually the case because we face that taboo again. We face that stigma. And we also face that sensitivity of this topic. People are worried about saying this or saying that or upsetting this person or triggering that person when I'm just saying it's just a story. Let's raise the awareness together and start speaking from a strong point of view. So in February earlier this year, I managed to speak in front of my first school, in front of the young people. They were ages 13 to 16. I got 45 minutes with each year group. I was thinking about how to construct the story. I did that. And I always leave 10 minutes for a Q&A session at the end. Now, actually, what I did is I spent 2 weeks thinking about how I could fill that Q&A session because, of course, the young children aren't going to ask any questions, right? They're going to feel awkward with this subject. I delivered my story. I got to the Q&A session and I asked if anybody had any questions. Nearly half of them put their hand up. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand more about the topic. What does trauma look like? What does it feel like to have gone through something like that as a child? What can people do if they've been through something like that? They were encouraged by the discussion. I feel like sometimes it's us adults, we're putting the fear around this topic. We're the ones that are scared to talk about it. The young people are ready for it. And that's what I proved at that school. There's awareness that needs to be, I believe, in my opinion, since doing this work in 2019, there's awareness that needs to be brought out in many levels when it comes to the sexual abuse of minors, but also actually the sexual abuse of anyone. The first level that I'd like to talk about is the victims. A lot of people are confused about how it would feel to have been exploited for your body in a sexual way. They don't understand Of course they don't understand. It hasn't happened to them. I feel like if we can talk about it more and raise the awareness of these things, then people will take this seriously and understand the trauma that comes following an experience like this. I feel like society has a lot of confusion about why it's taking so many years for people to actually ever say anything. My abuse finished at 10 years old. I didn't say anything for the first time until I was 27 years old. People often say, why did it take you so long? 17 years. It couldn't have been that bad. Now, of course, that can provoke a very angry response within us survivors. It couldn't have been that bad. That's a hurtful response. But I try my hardest not to get angry at that. I just feel like that's because there's a lack of education, a lack of information, and a lack of awareness out there. As soon as we start speaking more and more about this, and we start speaking loud and proud about the things that we made it through in our childhood, we're on the other side of that to speak strongly about it. Then people can start taking notice. Victim awareness of how the suffering can be following an experience of being exploited in a sexual nature, a crime of a sexual nature being had upon you. The next level of awareness that I'd like to talk about is with the children, with the young people, with teenagers. How are we going to equip them so that they can protect themselves in dangerous situations? How are we going to equip them with the knowledge so that they're less likely to be caught out by a grooming situation? How are we going to help them identify these dangerous situations before it goes too far? In fact, before it even reaches step number one. I talk a lot about education on simple things like private areas, what to do if anybody goes near yours, and what to do if anybody asks you to go near theirs. Private area conversation. So simple, right? You would have thought. But a lot of people are like, oh, won't that ruin the child's innocence? And I'm like, come on. It's only going to ruin the child's innocence if you put the sexual nature on that conversation. Let's take a 5-year-old. When we're drawing the body and labeling the body parts, the arms, the legs, the eyes, the head, the nose, we'll just label the private areas. The groin area at the front, the bottom area at the back, the mouth and the chest area. They're just private. And you let us know if anybody asks you to touch them there or touches you there. Simple as that. Now, of course, we're going to raise awareness with that 5-year-old, very different to that 9-year-old, very different to a 13-year-old, very different to a 17-year-old. But it's a continuous conversation that, of course, needs to happen. We have continuous education with every other subject: maths, English, art, physical education, whatever you would like to select from that arrangement. Just this body awareness could be one of those. Consent could be one of those. What to do if you feel uncomfortable in a sexual situation as you get into your teenage years could also be one of those. I believe that's hugely important. Next one, parents. Now, just before I continue, would you like me to go until 25 past, or would you like me to wrap up? I know we've got 20 minutes each. I know the timetable says 25 past.
No, go ahead and give yourself 5 more minutes.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And next level, parents. If we could just raise the awareness with parents, if we could get them interested in understanding more on the dangers that are definitely around them, to get everybody to stop saying, oh, that only happens over there, that only happens in that community. That's the kind of thing we need to raise with the people that are looking after young children. If we could just get them to actually take notice of this topic, first of all. Because, of course, when you're sitting on your social media on a Thursday evening with a glass of wine, as an example, you're scrolling through your Instagram, something comes up with a trigger warning, child sexual abuse. Of course, you're scrolling straight past it. I mean, who wants to engage in an uncomfortable conversation like that on an evening when you're relaxing? How can we turn this subject around and raise the awareness by grabbing people's attention and bringing them into the topic? I want to create films. I want to create TV. I want to create social media posts that people share. or people go into work the next day and they're like, oh my goodness, you've got to see this post. It's actually really interesting. And I've never thought about it like that before. If we could turn this around, we could raise the awareness, we could triple the rate that we are already doing. Now, I just want to add, I feel optimistic. I feel optimistic about the way that we're raising awareness these days. Earlier in this speaking slot that I have here, I talked about when I started reading people's stories online. I came across an 80-year-old woman's story. She had written it. She said that she comes from an era where you cannot speak about this thing, even if you wanted to. She says that the suppression of her story had hindered her in so many different ways throughout her life. I felt so sad for her. We live in a different era now. The things have changed. The awareness has completely changed of these topics. We can speak out online whenever we want. We can write a post and post it. People are a lot more informed about trauma, about PTSD, about how the life of a survivor can unfold. I feel optimistic about this. But to finish off, we then start talking about raising the awareness with offenders. And this is the conversation every time I try my best to bring it to my platforms. I get backlash. I get attacked. I get hate mail. People saying, oh, why are you supporting those people? I'm not supporting those people. They're criminals. And they are not good people, just to say the least. But if we don't start raising awareness with why they're committing those crimes, how are we ever going to get them to stop reoffending once they're released from prison and released back into our communities? Life in prison is not given for this crime. It's just not. And the death penalty is also not given for this crime. So they will be released back into our community. How are we going to raise the awareness so that people have information if they're thinking about committing this crime, but haven't yet? What are we going to do with those people? We need to raise the awareness with the offenders, because we can victim support. We can talk to parents for every day. We can talk to children and educate them every day. They are pieces of the puzzle, no doubt about it, and they will all help with prevention of this crime continuing. But there is that fourth piece of the puzzle, and actually it's probably the biggest piece of the puzzle, because if we can prevent people from committing the crime in the first place, then we don't have a victim. So these are all things that I believe we should strive to raise awareness for. And all of that, in the end, keeps our children safe. And that is our number one goal. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for putting on this event. I really appreciate it when I get invited to these things and people put a lot of time into the promo and organizing this. And I hope that was all helpful in some way. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. Sorry for that fluke earlier, and thank you, Jeremy, for saying those kind words. Thank you so much. One thing that I took from you was that no matter how often, and I'm in my second year, my second season of doing a monthly live, of allowing, survivors to share their story on my platform. And it doesn't matter how often we do it, how often it's being put out there. It seems like it's just never enough, right? Because our kids are lost. Thank you so much for being the advocate out there and all the way down to the UK and helping our kids getting the answers that they need that are, because I think education really needs to start at home. It's really parents, it's really up to us to make sure that we are safeguarding our children and that they're given the best possible scenario to be able to be successful in anything that they, and unfortunate, we're not doing role plays at home, and I think that's important. Talik, anything you want to add?
I just want to say, Jeremy, I think really what you are doing, speaking at schools, speaking to the parents, your organization, something to say. Everybody should definitely check out his organization.
Yes.
I was featured
on that Say Something movement. We're both on that same Say Something movement that he created. Thank you for that.
It's basically telling, our stories about, you know, what we've been through. And like Nettie said, you're already in the UK and you're promoting awareness, you know, speaking at schools. You know, you said you was 8 years old, you know, when it happened, 2 years, to suffer 2 years of abuse, and you didn't remember till you was 15. I resonated with that. So I just thank you for sharing your story and coming on this platform, my brother. You know, he's been on my podcast, so I know his story, but, you know, thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. I know if you need to sign off, we understand. So next is our therapist who's on deck, Joanne Turner. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Joanne. Let's put her up. And allow her to share her word. What's your word for the day?
Good afternoon, everyone. My word for today is therapy. Therapy. What is therapy? Specifically, I want to speak about psychotherapy. So psychotherapy is a broad treatment system with many far-reaching branches. It refers to the use of psychological methods and systems to treat people with various mental health challenges, including mental disorders. There's many different types of therapy. We have the cognitive behavioral therapy, the psychodynamic, the humanistic, the psychoanalytic, holistic, and that's just to name a few. Therapy helps you to build self-esteem. It can help you to reduce your anxiety, to strengthen your coping mechanisms, and to also improve social and community functioning. It can help you to learn the skills to deal with issues related to past trauma, their mental health conditions, which in turn really impacts and affects the rest of your life. Treatments can range from talk therapy, such as having discussions, listening, counseling. It can also include narrative therapy with journaling or writing your story or journaling. Poetry is what I meant to say. It can also include animal assisted therapy, which I've had the privilege now over the past 6 months to do on a farm, which has been very effective in dealing with nature and environments and animals to process your mental health challenges. It also can include creative art therapy, play therapy, and many more. But to speak more specifically about psychotherapy and to address your sexual trauma or other abuse, I want to share this with you. You are not the sum or product of your abuse. You are so much more than that. Basic math teaches us that any number added to another equates to the sum or the product of that equation. For an example, if I have one apple in this hand and another apple in this hand, and I bring them together, I will have 2 apples. But this process is only true with basic mathematics. It doesn't have to be the outcome of your life. Once again, you are not the sum of your abuse. So if there's anyone out there who has suffered any type of trauma, specifically today, sexual trauma, you have a friend who has experienced trauma, a relative, a neighbor, you want to declare with them and with yourself, I am more than my abuse. Grace yourself with the time, the space, and the opportunity to heal, recover, and to flourish. Tell yourself again, I am more than the abuse. You didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't what you're wearing, that it was too revealing or too tight or too loose. It wasn't your laughter, your walk, your personality. It had nothing to do with your outer appearance. It wasn't the cologne you were wearing or the perfume you had on. None of that had anything to do with it. You did nothing wrong. Allow yourself to live again. You're more than a survivor. You're more than an overcomer. You are greater than what tried to, destroy you. It not only tried to destroy you, but it also tried to destroy your family and your future. I bring you these words today. I am greater than my past experiences, current situations, financial challenges, marital issues, and abandonment struggles. I am greater than these medical diagnoses, physical ailments, feelings of inadequacy, emotional instability, and personal insecurities. I am greater than that child abuse, family dysfunction, incest, domestic violence, sexual molestations, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. I am no longer a victim, but a victor, walking into my victorious life. Too many of us, way too many of us, were raised with what goes on in this house stays in this house mentality. Talking and taking the approach that I'm not telling my business to anyone, or having the mindset that I can do this by myself. I have one question for you today. How has that been working for you? How has that really been working for you? Do you struggle with sleepless nights, relationship issues, difficulties trusting others, or fear of being alone? Do you find yourself self-medicating with nicotine, alcohol, or illicit drugs? How's your money management? Is there excessive spending? Do you sometimes self-sabotage? In other words, putting yourself down, neglecting yourself before anybody else had a chance to neglect you? Do you allow people to take advantage of you, continue to use and abuse you? Have you experienced self-inflicted harm to yourself, or verbal or physical attacks on others? Or has there been thoughts or attempts of suicide? These are all challenges that could be the result of the sexual trauma you suffered. What happened in your past doesn't have to predict or diminish your future. Allow yourself the opportunity to have a better life, the one you always dreamed of. Be the transcriber of your story, writing your own outcome. Believe it or not, it's much easier to navigate life with someone familiar with the journey and knowing how to reach the destination. They're aware of the potholes, the detours, and the roadblocks of this journey called life. Therapy can provide you with that opportunity when you're connected with the right person and you give yourself permission to do the hard work, because it will be hard work. And yes, you do need the right person. Just because you made a phone call and you got connected to someone doesn't mean that's the right person for you. You find the person that works best for you, given your situation, your culture, your background, and then you decide to put in the hard work. So what was actually meant to destroy you destroy your life forever can actually make you stronger and wiser if you allow yourself to be greater than what you've been through. I believe there's a scripture in Ecclesiastes 7:8. It says, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. In other words, this is not your ending. Endings are better than the beginnings. That beginning may have been a beginning of abuse, neglect, the sexual trauma, but that doesn't have to be your ending. So sticking to it, being determined to do the hard work, to go through therapy, to work through what you've been through for better results. That is where you are stronger and predicting a better ending. No longer be stuck in your past thoughts, feelings, or your emotions. Give yourself the time, opportunity, and liberty to process through it all towards a better future. There's a quote by the late Dr. Miles Monroe that reads, "We should never live so below our privilege that we begin to believe a lie and call it truth." Your past trauma, those things that those voices and visions tell you, those nightmares, those dreams and flashbacks, they're the lie. You have a truth to still live. You are greater. Therapy can give you the freedom to choose a greater life outcome. You can learn the skills, the techniques, and the strategies to transform what has been into what can be. You deserve it. As young children, we are often asked, what will you want to be when we grow up? Do you remember what that thing was for you? What do you want to be when you grow up? Yes, life has given you some twists and turns that you never expected. But guess what? It's not too late. It's not too late to be whatever your heart desires. You are not a mathematical equation. You plus the sexual assault doesn't equal your future. Do yourself the biggest favor you've done in a while. Exercise your choice. Let these next days, weeks, months, and even possible years be your greater days, the best days of your life. So I encourage you to dominate the time that you have left. Greater is yours. How about it? Give yourself a chance. Thank you.
Yes, Joanne. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving your expertise on therapy and allowing us to reflect on how we should view ourselves. Because oftentimes we are too hard on ourselves. We blame ourselves when our choices have been taken away. So thank you for that. Leek, you want to add anything? Oh, you're on mute.
I just want to say thank you. I was over here smiling. People probably can't see. I was just like, some stuff that you were saying was just hitting that spot. Thank you for, as a therapist of what you do to help people out there that's, struggling, that people that's scared to go to therapy, that's, just trying to therapist for the first time. I just thank you for your services and all that you have done. And thank you, Nettie, for, bringing her on here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, she's amazing. So we are like way ahead of schedule. So that's good. Hey, David, are you up? You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead. You want to share anything with him?
David Torres is a father, minister, and husband, and has set out an inspirational journey to empower these men by sharing his own personal experience with sexual abuse. David just released a book, his first book recently, and I'm just gonna let him tell his story. You know, I heard it before. Me and Nettie had him on our platforms, but you know, go ahead, David.
And what's your word for today?
It's accountability. Accountability.
Oh, a good one.
Yes. So my story starts at the young age of between the ages of 4, 6. I really don't remember. I suppress all my memories throughout these years, but it started as a young kid. I was molested by one of my sisters. There was a lot of touching and sexual activity, and you know, with that encounter that I had, I learned secrecy. I learned how to denied that something really happened, and then you know, as I was growing up, I was also molested by 2 of my neighbors. They were both males. And with these situations, I was really suicidal. I was confused. I didn't know who to talk to because my parents were great parents, but I don't recall that they ever spoke to me about what sex was. You know, our first guest touch about it, and I think that we as parents we're responsible to talk to our kids in regards to what is happening out there, what could happen to them, and you know what choices do they have that they can really say no and tell someone that they were touched inappropriately and you know we are responsible as parents and you know throughout my upbringing like I said, you know, I was really suicidal and I didn't have nobody to talk to. I was introduced to porn and I was addicted to porn, including during my marriage years. I was addicted to it. And you know, it is something that really messes you up. And throughout my experiences with one of my neighbors, the sexual activity increased, and you may ask why did I keep going back to this person, and it's because even though he groomed me, um, you know, I felt like I was being seen by someone and I was looking for that male figure. And that's why it's so important that we as parents are male figure parents, that we hug our kids, that we kiss them, that we tell them I love you, that it's okay. I think in our Hispanic community we lack a lot of that, and it's because the machismo persona that we have to portray it, and no matter what we go through in life, we are men, and it doesn't matter what happened to us, we're still men, and we are strong. And yeah, of course we can be strong, but at the same time we can show affection, we can show the love that our kids need. And you know, it is really important that as a dad that we show that love to our kids, to our boys especially, because we are their heroes. And a lot of things that are happening is because we're not showing them the love that they're searching for. And that is where our accountability comes in. that we are responsible to show them the love that they're going to be searching out there. Why do they need to search for love out there when they can have that at home? One of the things that I wanted to speak about, and it's something that I come to learn now after, I think I have overcome most of my trauma, and is that groomers, when we talk about sexual trauma, we right away we think about, oh, somebody's gonna snatch my kid while they're walking, or from school to our house or whatnot. And sexual trauma can happen with people that are our friends, our families, and we have to be aware of that. What groomers do is that they gain the trust of the family first, and then they groom the kids to then sexually assault them. I can tell you that my journey or my sexual trauma didn't stop with my two neighbors. At some point of my life, I was introduced to this youth pastor, and he promised me that he was gonna help me, that he was gonna be a mentor for me. And one night after I went with him to a preaching, I felt vulnerable. I felt that I needed to talk to someone, to confide in him what the experiences that I had. And that night he promised me that he was gonna help me. And he gained access to my home, like, he gained the trust of my family. We treated him like another family member. He became a brother. He even called me his best friend. And this person was basically 10, 12 years older than me. And, you know, my parents didn't saw a problem of me staying at his house, or nobody saw a problem that the young kids from our church at that point were going to his house, to his room. And at some point, I was by myself with him, and at his house, in his room, and he basically did things that I was in shock. I cannot believe that this man did this to me. I felt like I left my body. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk to, because I confided in this person to help me, and they couldn't. Nobody could help me. I felt like nobody could help me. That no one could believe me, the victim, because this was the man of God. And I want you to know that you have a choice, that you can say no. And even if you went through these sexual traumas, like we all did, I want you to know that there's healing, that there's a journey towards healing. And one of the things that I always say, that I have it in my book, is a quote that healing is possible, but it doesn't always feel possible. And the reason why I say that is because healing is a journey. If you don't have no one that you can share with, that you feel that you don't have that safe space, there's resources out there. There's therapists like our friend Joanne, that they provide that safe space, that safe platform. And I can tell you that I started to feel the healing when I started speaking about it, when I started to write about it. And I can tell you that even though I had my book out, it's called Live. It wasn't until I was honest with myself writing the book, because I started the book so many times, and I will put it aside when it comes to writing the hard stuff. And I can tell you that I was at a point where I needed to be honest with myself. And as I was writing my book, I was crying. But during that crying moment, I was finding my healing and going to therapists, speaking to my pastor, speaking to my mentor, Robert Marshall, that has helped me a lot tremendously. And I can tell you that not everyone is out there to get you. There's people out there that they really want to help you. And accountability comes when you left your guard down and you let that person that is in front of you help you. You will never find the healing until you let that guard down. I know that we create this guard, we create these walls around our hearts, so we don't let nobody in because we always in a defensive mode. But at the same time, because you have built those walls, you yourself are trapped inside those walls. And that's why you are always angry. That's why you are always upset. I can tell you this from personal experience. I got married in 1999, and it wasn't until my first son, my first kid, was born, that as I was watching him grow up, that I was having these triggers, and I will get angry. And then I will take it on him or my wife. And the people that loved me the most were the ones suffering a lot. And the reason why is because I was broken. I was hurting, and people that are hurt the people that they love the most. And we need to understand that unless you open your heart, unless you open your voice, you're gonna find out that people that love you, they want to help you. And throughout these, we're gonna go into 24 years of marriage, and it wasn't until a few years back that we are actually in a better place. We talked about divorce so many times. My wife wanted to leave me so many times because of my outbursts, my outrage. And let me tell you, I was a preacher, I was a pastor, I was a leader, and a counsel, and I was getting on altars, preaching the word of God, and I was hurting. And whenever I would get triggers, I was hurting my family. And that is what is happening in society nowadays, is that we have people that are hurting a lot, and because they're hurting the people that they love the most as well. And it's very important that we take that word accountability, and we say, okay, I need help. You have to realize that you need help, and that you need to get the help that you need, whether it's with a professional, whether it's with a pastor, whether it's with these like platforms like this, where you can find a safe space and let someone in your heart. Not everyone wants to hurt you. There's people that really love you. They want to protect you. They want to create that safe space for you. I can tell you that during my book release this past Sunday, I felt the love of everyone, and I think that is something that we, as sexual trauma survivors, we are seeking for, that we are loved. And at the same time, sharing my story, that day, um, we come to find out that there was a lot of people that were finding healing at that same moment. There was a lot of people crying. People have been reaching out to me through social media, my personal contact information, and they're telling me their stories. And I told them, this is your first step. This is your first step, just by sharing, because we have that secret really deep down inside of us that is killing us. Is It doesn't want us to live, and that's the reason why I titled my book Live. And just to finish up, I want to say that if it wasn't for my wife giving me another chance, I wouldn't be the one. I wouldn't be here sharing my story. I think it's very important that we create a safe space for those that have gone through sexual trauma. We need to create that safe environment. If you have a family member that have gone through sexual trauma, you need to create that safe space. Just because they're male and they suffer a sexual trauma by another male, that doesn't mean that they're not male anymore. They're male. It's just that they went through an experience. And once they share that to you, they're looking for that safe space where they can confide in you and where you can love them, and that sexual trauma, that doesn't define them. So I want to encourage you to get the help that you need. We are rooting for you, and we know that just like we have, you can do it too. You can live again. Thank you all.
You on mute, Nettie.
Oh, Lord. Let's put it all out there. Okay, give me the layout. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. Is everybody on? Okay, hi. So, David, I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to come back and have to share your story. I just commend you because it's not easy. It's not easy to discuss sexual trauma, and then when it was so intimate, with your family member, and then, you know, how it goes on, it just spreads like wildfire. Like you know what I mean? You're oftentimes probably were feeling at one point in time that you were like a target, and you probably were just so confused about that. Like, what was it about me? So thank you for even sharing um that in itself. But I love how you incorporate accountability of making sure that if you're not whole, you end up bleeding on others, and you end up
Mhm.
hurting others, the ones that you absolutely love, in this case your family. And so we'll have an opportunity in just a moment to get the perspective from your wife's side of her trauma, because a lot of people don't realize that spousal support does often also feel the trauma and go through the trauma with the survivor. And so we want to give that a platform today. But thank you. You guys support each other so beautifully, so openly. And I'm the one that had to reach out to your wife to get her on my platform, because I think it was just so important that you guys have and know how to support. And you know what I mean? That's going to be the most important thing. It's not easy to love someone who has been dealt with trauma
Mhm.
in such a significant way. It often makes the survivor feel like how can he even love others when he can't even love himself. And then in retrospect to you being a male, that's the other part of it. We always often hear that it's always a female, and we rarely ever talk about it being males too. And now they're at the spectrum where it's like even, you
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
it's like 50-50 now, where it's not so prevalent pedophilia is so prevalent now. So I can go on and on about those topics, but thank you for your word for the day.
Thank you.
Leek, did you want to add anything?
I'll say, David, thank you for your word of the day, accountability. I love that you own that, because of what you went through, and you take accountability, like, for the actions. Some of us don't know that our actions are from our sexual trauma, and you take full accountability. That's when me and Nettie was doing an event. I was like, David God has that word, because he's been on my platform, Nettie's platform. He always take accountability for things that happen. I would say, shout out to Robert Marshall in the book Echoes, because, like, if it wasn't for that book, I would have never met you. I would have never met you, David, like, reading that book, and I would have never met Ronald, like a lot of people, and you're out here. He just released a book, guys. He's out there talking on behalf of not just men, but Latino men that's scared to speak up, that don't speak up. And I appreciate you, brother. I love you, man. Thank
I
you
love
so
you
much.
guys too. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Wow. So let us add his beautiful bride. And before I do, David and Kelly are associate pastors of the Encounter Church in Florida. So if you're following any of our pages or any of their pages, they often post their church. I love the fact that their church is supporting them in this specific topic. Like, I cannot even stress enough, like, how important this is. All I've ever been advocating for is, how do we get people into the church that can advocate for people like us? And the fact that you guys are associate pastors, and then just being so vulnerable allows you to reach the masses. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you're being for real for once. You're not as perfect as people proclaim pastors to be. Now, we want our spiritual leaders to have some sort of background, right? But and experience and have it all together, because, my goodness, if people are gonna be falling all over the place because they don't know which way to go, and you need some sort of leadership. But to have somebody like you guys to be just, first of all, in support of each other, and also the support of the church, you guys are unstoppable. Like,
we are so
glory to
grateful with that.
God. Like,
Yeah.
you guys, like, for real, that scripture, no weapon formed against me is gonna be able to prosper, period.
Yeah, we're grateful. We're grateful.
Period.
We felt the love. We felt the love from our pastors, the congregation. I mean,
God.
we still cannot believe it. I'm still cannot believe I have a book out. It's so real for me. I mean, but it's out there. It's
Yes.
not only for the church. It's for everyone.
Whew.
It's for adults. I want to put that out there. Is right on your face. But I needed to be honest with me, and if I wanted to help the rest that are suffering, I needed to be honest with myself so they can see that we're not perfect. We went through it, but at the end of the tunnel, we can smile and we can live again.
Well, you're certainly making me smile. All right, to you, my lovely Kelly. What is your word for today?
Hi, blessings. My word for today is forgiveness.
Ooh.
I wanted to share a verse from the Bible today before I started. It's in Ephesians 4:32. It says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave us." I think forgiveness is one of the key in the journey of a sexual abuse survivor. Sometimes it's my experience with my husband that guiltness was a big thing in him. He felt guilty because of the other ones that were abused after him. Um, it was very hard for him. He carried a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. Um, and I told him, first of all, you have to forgive yourself. This is not on you. Um, the victims after you, they're not on you. They're really on your abuser. He was the one who continued. So I think after he forgave himself, his healing journey started. As a spouse, we do go through the journey with them. Like in my experience with my husband, um, it was hard. Now I understand his outburst. Now I understand why of the emotional and verbal abuse that I couldn't understand in that moment. But as he said, there was times that um, the word divorce was in our conversations. After I knew who his abuser was that day, that my whole life can crumble down. I asked him for a divorce, and I was going to leave with my children just because I felt betrayed. I felt couldn't trust him anymore, and I wanted to leave. But we serve a living God and an awesome God that He told me to stay. And even though I didn't know why He wanted me to stay, and I fought with God, why you want me to stay when I can't do this no more. But I thank the Lord that I was obedient to stay, and working together um, toward His healing. I found in my heart to forgive him. Um, it was hard, but I did forgive him because, first of all, I love the Lord, and second of all, I love him. And I saw him in this dark hole that every day he was getting more deeper into it. And I told myself, if I don't forgive him, if I don't help him, how is he going to come out of this dark hole? And as a woman of God, I knew that I had to help my husband to get out of that dark circle. And I just wanted to let everybody know that has a spouse or a family member that is a sexual trauma, sexual abuse survivor, that we need to create that forgiveness. We have to create a safe space, place, like my husband said, but forgive like God forgave us. Not is that I forgive you today and then tomorrow when we have an argument, I'm just going to bring everything up. Just the same way as Christ forgave us and threw all of our sins and all our bad stuff in the bottom of the ocean and will never bring it out to us, is the same way that we have to forgive. We have to have a heart willing to do this, to love that person and create a safe space for that person so that person can have the journey toward healing. Healing is a process. We both have gone through it, and I think my forgiveness to him was a key to the success of his healing. We're still going through it, and as my husband said, we're going to be married 24 years now in August. But I think that the past 3 years that he has been writing his book, that we have been having conversations about his book, it has also healed both of us. It has been a process of healing in the last 3 years. I can tell you that our marriage is more solid, more found in the Word, more found into each other in these past 3 years. I think forgiveness is a big word, but at the same time, it's rewarding. It's rewarding when you forgive that person. That person is set free, and also you as well as the person that is forgiving. It frees you. It allows you to love more. It allows you to be a better person, and seeing what we celebrate this weekend with his book, I think is, as my husband says, still surreal. We felt the love of everybody, and our mission through our journey is to help others to achieve forgiveness and to achieve that there is still life after the trauma. And I think that we, the loving people that surround these victims is very important. We have to create a safer place for them. We have to create an environment of love, that they can feel safe and they can grow through their journey of healing. Um, it's it has been a long road, for me and my husband, but I think through forgiveness we are now where we are. We are celebrating his dream of writing a book. We are celebrating that our marriage is more solid, that our marriage is more, how can I say, our that we're living a good moment right now in our lives. And I think all of this is achieved through forgiveness. And as I said, when you forgive, you have to do it just as Christ did it for us, with our hearts, with our mind, with our soul. That person that we forgave, we would never come um, throw things at them when we're in an argument or where we're mad at that person. So we have to forgive like God forgave us. Um, I'm just so grateful for what we're living right now. I'm grateful to God that I was obedient when He said that I had to stay. And now I understand why. It doesn't matter all the process that we have gone through, but forgiveness is the key to living a better life. Um, it has been a journey for me, but it was worth it. If you ask me if I will go through all this again, I will say absolutely, to get to where we are right now through forgiveness. I think that's all the word for today.
Wow. Well, thank you, Miss Kelly. Thank you so much for those for your take on what forgiveness looks like. And you own that. Absolutely. I mean, your whole journey, everything that people, that people have prophesied over you guys, and
Yes,
it's all coming to pass. And that's what God does. Everything in His timing. You know what I'm saying? And so we just have
absolutely.
to be patient. And when we don't even see, the fruits of that prophecy, right? Or the fruits of our
Yes,
even our labor. When we don't see that, it can be very discouraging. And of course, we have to be real with real with ourselves and address our emotions. And that was real for you. Divorce was, a
yes,
possibility. It's not what you wanted, but it was like, I can't get past certain things, and then you just allow God, when we give it to Him, and you allow
yes,
God to kind of like really minister to you, that you didn't do things in quick haste and stuff like that. So I commend you for even being courageous enough to even share those intimate details in your marriage. A lot of people don't like to share things like that,
yeah,
but that's what makes you guys so awesome, and that power couple, that that you guys got that, you know um and no, we know that marriages, relationships, they're not easy, but when you love someone and you get the understanding of how you're supposed to love someone, you know it's not to dismiss their bad behavior or anything like that, but if someone is willing to correct them, then
yeah,
then you have to allow a room for that person to grow, grow from their mistakes and grow. And that's what you did here. So thank you for just sharing your take on forgiveness. um
yeah.
I love you guys.
I have to get off. I'm still working,
Okay,
but
go ahead
God bless
then.
everyone, and it was a pleasure to be here.
All right. Yeah, we want to be respectful of everybody's time. Leek, what do you have to say?
I want to say that was a beautiful testimony on forgiveness. Takes a lot, women of God to forgive. A lot of men, sometimes they go into like relationships or marriage not in their partner doesn't know about their sexual abuse. You know, some people walk away from it, and the fact that, you know, she listened to God and stayed, you know, and just, you know, just like seek the Lord and just like, you know, took it, you know, seriously. You know, some people walk away from it. You know, let's keep it real. They walk away, and the fact that she just listened to God, that is a lot. You know, you got a person that's going to support you, David. You know, I just love, like Nettie said earlier, the church. You know, a lot of people that's talking about sexual abuse, they want the church to support, and the fact that your church is supporting your story is amazing. And I was thinking, driving today, I was listening to a song called "More Than Able" by Elevation Worship, and there's the lyrics in there that says, "I come a long way. I see how you work. I see how you work. There's so much goodness and grace, much more than I deserve.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't stay where I'm at. We come this far by faith. There's so much more to my story, and I know that God is not done with me yet, you know." And that just, you know, your wife telling her story just like really, really spoke to me, you know. Thank you so much, Kelly and David. You guys are awesome. If I ever in Florida, Tampa, Florida, which my sister-in-law lives up there, I would definitely visit y'all church. Thank you.
Wow, I don't know. I'm like full. And we've got more panelists to go. Wow, this has been encouraging even to me. I don't know about you, Leek, but it's definitely
Yeah.
encouraging to me. And even the comments are going, you know, are going, we got people saying that this is good. And Kelly's story is beautiful. That I feel like that's the unconditional love that people just survivors like us deserve, because we want to love, right? Sometimes just it's hard to love, you know, and then we just need help learning how to love. And that really starts with us, our inner self,
Yes.
needing to understand that you're just as important, you know, as your family. You know, you need to, but in order for you to love them correctly, you got to love yourself correctly. And if that means therapy, then that's what that means. If that means, hey, I got to start holding myself accountable by my words, by the words, you know, by what I say about myself, you're gonna have to start correcting things. You know, your choice to, you have to choose that. You have to choose the things that you want to confess so that they can manifest. I can go on and on about that topic. So we have our next guest. So go ahead, Lee.
Our next guest, Ronald J. McCray, who is a global men's leader, international speaker, two-time best-selling author of is God Who He Say He Is, and contributor author of Echoes, the stories of male survivors overcoming sexual trauma, is an international Christian recording artist. So I want to bring up my brother, Ronald J. McCray. Yes, he's been on me and Nettie platforms too.
So yeah, we might want to give him a few more minutes.
Okay.
I know he got a bigger bio than that.
Oh, we keep going. I keep going. As a survivor and advocate, he is committed to helping others walk in their identity and purpose. Ronald is currently pursuing a degree in psychology at the University of MD Global Campus. Yes.
Well, I don't see him. So I know that he recently went to a college to be able to share. And he was one of the panelists. And then he got our intake on what we thought would be appropriate to ask as far as how to prevent sexual assault on college campuses. And I thought that was cool that he got our intake on that so that he could take it back. And I just love the community that we're building, a Leek. We're a community for survivors, a safe space for them to share their stories, share their mental health issues, because, you know, we have not arrived, right? And we're not gonna, you know, I'm always gonna continue till, you know, the very last breath that I take. I'm always gonna continue to fight and to combat, you know, against sexual assault in any form, in any kind. And so, yeah, so that is what this platform is all about, what this conference is all about. This is our second annual year of actually throwing a conference online for Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
And I just want to say, Ron, again, shout out to the Book Echoes, because
yes,
if it wasn't for the Book Echoes, I would have never known who Ron was. At one time, I thought I was the only male. Well, I was the only male that I knew that went through sexual abuse, that was open and talking about it. And, you know, shout out to Nolan, who introduced me to the book. You know, the Survivor Circle is a Facebook page, guys, for all the men out there. Survivor Circle. It's a Facebook page for men who is overcoming sexual abuse, that's been through it. So make sure you guys go on Facebook, Survivor Circle. Shout out to, you know, Rich, Daquan, Mario, Robert, Marshall, you know, all of Ronald, you know, all the people that I met and stuff like that. If it wasn't for that page, I would have never met Ronald. I actually read the book and I was like, wow. I actually read the book. And I was like, wow, like his story resonated with me. I was just like, wow, the stuff that he's been through. I didn't, you know, go through the exact same stuff, but, you know, we all had this common bond of being sexually abused. And it's so great. But Nettie,
yeah,
do you want to retry your poem or no?
Yeah.
Retry it. I feel like, you know, retry it, girl.
I don't know what happened.
Listen, it's okay.
I don't know what. I don't know
okay.
what happened. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. I was just beside myself. But I think he's ready to come on. He was trying to be a stickler for the time. So, and he's also working, guys. So he said that he can come right on. Just give him a few seconds to do that.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, in retrospect to the book, when we decided that we were gonna dissect that book chapter for chapter.
Yes. Shout out to the men from Echoes. Me and Nettie's gonna come on my podcast. We're gonna do a book review on Echoes. Once I get the book again, I let somebody borrow it. Once I get the book again, we're gonna do a book review. That book is amazing. You know,
and part of it has to do with like, okay, so it is about everybody's story, right?
Yes.
But it's very detailed, and what I appreciated most about it about it being detailed is that I was able to connect my trauma, right? And so that all of a sudden now my trauma is now it's relevant. You know what I mean? Before I felt like I was dirty. I don't want to talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? I barely wanted to address it, but it helped me address, you know, certain things that I might have been missing so that I could help heal, you know? Yeah. So he's back on. Let's add him to the thing, and we could talk about that when we're finished with him. We had some time to talk about it. So thank God. Now let me add him. Hold on. What am I doing wrong? Oh, here we go. Okay, we got him on. Hello. Yes. We were trying to read your entire bio to catch the time, but sorry about that. I mean, not everybody is taking up the 20 minutes. I guess we didn't really discuss that. Like what to happen if it was just going by. But everything is going smoothly the way it should. So thank you. I know you're working and we want to be respectful of your time. But we did do your bio. So now just what is your word for today?
My word for today is identity.
Ooh, let's go.
That's very well, I guess me discovering my identity through this journey of healing from trauma, and just learning who I am, who I am as an individual, who I am as a child of God, has been a continual journey. And so I wanted to share a few thoughts from my personal experience to hopefully help someone else who may be in pursuit of reconnecting with yourself, because trauma, it feels like, causes us to lose parts of ourselves, but I am a living witness that we can reconnect with ourselves again through healing. And so one of my favorite scriptures, I will call my life scripture, is 2 Corinthians 5:17, and it says, "If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things have passed away, and behold, all things are become new." And the reason why this is my favorite scripture is because it speaks so clearly to what happens when we experience the new birth in Christ. Literally all the things that we've ever done, the labels that we may have worn over ourselves, are no more. And as we come into relationship with Jesus, um, it's like we have a restored identity, a new identity that he gives us. And I wanted to know for so long that I guess that I wasn't defined by my past and the things that had happened to me, the things that I had done. I just saw myself as tarnished for so long. I've heard different people say, like, a common theme so far throughout the conference, that you're not your trauma, you're not the things that were done to you, and it's what happened to you is not your fault. And I want to just echo those sentiments. And these were things that I had to, like, tell myself, like, even after beginning this journey of, like, intentional healing. I believe that we can't, like, overcome what we are unwilling to confront, what we choose to, like, ignore or hide or pretend that it doesn't exist. It's hard for us to conquer it because we won't deal with it. And so part of this, well, not part of it, all of this journey has been God, like, um, almost like taking me by the hand and going back in time to um, where the events first took place. Within the first 20 years of my life, have had probably about 9 sexual abusers between men and women. One of which being a woman, but the others were all male, and it created a crisis of identity for me. I didn't know who I was. I know I've shared in our conversation the other day, Nettie, that just from, like, a sexual identity perspective, just imagine a vulnerable 7-year-old who should have no concept of sexual experience, but to then experience something that is sexually traumatizing to them. And what I began to experience was there was a physiological response to this traumatic event. Although psychologically, I knew I didn't want it. I knew that I wanted the person to stop, but it felt like my body was almost like betraying me. Um, and so it caused me to question, like, well, did I desire it? Like, I heard somebody say, well, what was it about me that made the predator or the predators want to pursue me? Was it my timidity, my shy personality at the time? Um, just trying to find a reason to rationalize someone else's desire to harm me, which was impossible. I couldn't get inside of their brains to understand why they would do such a thing. And so I internalized um, the pain. I pretended for so long as if it didn't happen. Um, I the, the first abuser was a close male relative and 2 of his male friends, and they were probably 4 or 5 years older than me. And I want to say the abuse continued maybe like 2 years, but I can't remember definitively. But they would make me do things to them. There was, times where weapons were involved, where one of the relative that I mentioned, he would, hold a knife my connection dropped. But yeah, he would hold a knife toward me and force me to perform sexual acts on two other family members. And I was sexually assaulted when I was 15 and 9 months at my first job at Popeyes by the cook who worked in the kitchen with me, who was old enough to be my grandfather. Um, I was raped at the age of 16, and was started out as a consensual um, experience that I became uncomfortable with, and told the guy that I no longer wanted to continue, but he took no for it. He didn't take no for an answer, and just forced himself upon me. And so, although I was choosing to ignore the reality of the trauma, um, I didn't realize that I was living out both the short term and the long term effects of sexual trauma survivor. When I first started to dive into the research to understand how the trauma affects the person's life, it was like I told this person who wrote this book or curriculum um, my whole life story, and they just pinned it in such a detailed manner. And it showed me that I wasn't alone, that there were a lot of other people in the world who had shared my experiences. And, again, although I wasn't addressing the trauma was almost like addressing me because I was living it out. The trauma had become an identity for me. Um, there are a lot of names that you could have called me at one point of my life, a drunkard being one of them, promiscuous being another. I was in a session at an HBCU recently where I was hosting a breakout session for male survivors of sexual trauma. And that's where I learned that promiscuous is not a term that young people use. And the guy said he had never heard that term. I was like, okay, well, what is the proper vernacular? And he said it was hypersexuality. So he could have called me hypersexual at a time. And many other things as well. And so having a relationship with Jesus has completely transformed my life. A lot of people ask me, well, how did you get to the place of healing that you are now? How did you get to the place of being able to be married and have a child? And I cannot attribute it to therapy, although I do see a therapist, but I didn't start seeing a therapist until probably about a year or so ago. Um, but that hasn't been like intentionally focused with trauma. And so I believe I mentioned to you, Nettie, in our recent discussion that I started EMDR therapy, which will allow me um, to recover the fragmented memories that I have from all of the traumatic experiences that I've had in my life, so that I can properly address it and properly process through it and heal from it. And so um, I used to feel like so hopeless, like I could not outlive the things that happened to me, that it was the narrative of my life that will follow me for the rest of my life. And through my relationship with Jesus, um, he has brought about so much healing in my life and has allowed me to move forward. Somebody talked about the power and importance of forgiveness. I remember when God started to deal with me about forgiving that the first relative who sexually abused me, and I didn't know necessarily what that looked like, what that meant. I didn't know if forgiving him meant that I also needed to restore him to a place of relationship with my life. I didn't know if forgiveness meant I release you of the offense, but I can continue on with my life. Um, and so I was afraid that if I addressed him, that about what I remembered happened when we were younger, that he might harm me. I was terrified of him because he would beat on me, and like he would verbally and physically assault me. And so I thought either I could like confront him about this, he could try to gaslight me and pretend it like it never happened, which would do further psychological damage to me, or he could acknowledge that he remembered it, which would make more, bring to reality everything that I was remembering, because this would have been a very elaborate thing to make up in my mind. And so I did, meet with him, and we sat next to one another in my car, and I asked him if he remembered, some of the details that I described to him from, when we were younger, and he acknowledged that he remembered. And I remember saying to him that what you and those other guys, your two friends, did to me almost destroyed my life. Like, I still live with the effects of what you all did to me to this day. But I said, God has restored my life, and I said, and I forgive you. And not only do I forgive you, but I want you to forgive yourself as well, because I didn't want him to be a hostage to I didn't want him to be held. Like, I wasn't interested in vindication or vindicating myself. Like, I wanted him to be free. And after that conversation, it was like I was able to unfreeze from that vulnerable, unprotected 7-year-old who was sexually victimized. And I was able to finally begin to emotionally mature. Like, one of the effects of trauma is, like, you continue to grow physically. Like, you can be in a 35-year-old body, but emotionally you can very much be the age at which you experienced the abuse. And for me, that was 7 years old. And so I could finally move on in life. And having to forgive people that I would never have an opportunity to have a conversation with. Like, I never saw his two friends again after we, after that time of life shifted. I was never able to go to the cook who was in his 60s and to tell him that I forgave him. I was never able to go to the other family member who sexually abused me, or the guy who raped me at the age of 16. I wasn't able to go to him, or my mother's friend who sexually abused me. She doesn't actually know about that to this day. But I had to be able to take my power into my hands, so that I wasn't holding myself in asylum of pain, to allow myself to give myself the freedom to be able to continue to move forward in my life. And I very much still live with the effects of sexual trauma to this day. It just doesn't control me anymore, doesn't define me anymore. Like, I never thought that I would be a husband and a father. I do realize very much how the trauma has shown up in, like, platonic friendships, where I may realize when I'm becoming too close, or not too close, but closer to a person in a friendship, that I'll become guarded and defensive, because I feel like I can't allow you to get too close to me because you want to hurt me. But I think it was David Torres that mentioned that not everybody's out to harm you. And I had to learn that that was the truth. Like, that men had good intentions for wanting to be close to me. That there wasn't something that was wanted in exchange for my intimacy, but that I could actually have healthy platonic relationships with men with no ulterior motive, and that I could de-arm or disarm, and allow people into that space. Because one of the things that I found is that healing from the trauma meant creating a different narrative in the space where I was harmed. I couldn't be afraid to let men in because of what happened to me, or else I would always be afraid of them. I would never understand them. I would never have the ability to relate to them, or I would always relate with women, which would then create an unbalance for me. And so God would send me brothers of whom that I could have these types of close, healthy relationships with, that would bring about a great degree of healing in my life. And I'm still very much on that journey. And even as it relates to women, because I have trauma related to women, I'm not always trusting with them. And I didn't even know that I had sexual trauma as it related to a woman until about a month ago, when I was, it was probably like 1:00 in the morning. And I just had a memory that I guess my mind blocked out, that resurfaced. It was a fragmented memory that I had of this female relative, um, and it was like I was watching a movie of everything that took place, and I never contextualized that experience as sexual trauma until that moment. Like the mind will literally block out memories in an effort to protect you, but they do at times resurface. And I just laid there like in shock, and I couldn't move. I couldn't even cry. I was just like there, um, not knowing now what to do with this information. Um, and so that's when I, reached out to a therapist and was made aware of EMDR. And what he explained is that because of the number of times I've experienced sexual trauma, and because I only have fragmented memories of these experiences, it's very likely that simultaneously I'm experiencing trauma or triggers connected to those experiences of trauma. And in order to be able to begin to heal, um, I would have to, would need to confront it through the help of, therapy and, of course, God with me on this journey. So, um, I take great joy in knowing that I am a work in progress, that although I'm no longer defined by my past or held hostage to the things that have happened in my past, um, healing is still very much a journey. It's a daily journey that I'm on in pursuit of wholeness. But I take joy in knowing um, that I don't necessarily have to be perfectly healed in order to be in pursuit of wholeness and to be able to live a fulfilled life, a restored life. And so, what I would say to someone who's listening is um, that to re-echo the sentiments that what happened to you is not your fault. The people who contributed to your brokenness was not your fault. Um, However, you very much have the power to make a different decision about the outcome of your life. Like you don't have to live as a hostage to your trauma. New life is possible. I don't know if you are a person of faith, um, and if you are, if Jesus can, the work that He has done in my life and so many others, He can do for you as well. But if faith is not, um, or you don't believe in God, there are other avenues for you to be able to pursue wholeness as well, that being therapy. And I would highly encourage you to take that step, to take that step toward the better outcome for your life. I didn't necessarily prepare anything specific to say, like I wanted to speak from my heart. Um, and so I just hope that people walk away feeling empowered. I have the blessing of raising this beautiful 4-year-old boy whom I love dearly, and because of my experiences, I get to give him all the things that I would have wanted as a child. The protection, the awareness that I have because of my experiences, and I'm not just going to let him go over anybody's house. I'm going to teach him about boundaries, or my wife and I have been teaching him about boundaries at an early age, so he knows, what's appropriate touch and what's not appropriate touch. The importance of using your voice to speak up. If there's something that makes you uncomfortable that you don't like, say it. Even if it's mommy or daddy, if we hurt your feelings, or we want you to exercise your voice, so you're never in a situation where you feel like you have to remain silent because you're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings with how you feel. How you feel is valid and important. And I'll add this: it's not too late if you're older. It's not too late to tell someone if you've never disclosed the abuse. I know that there is a 25 to 30 year gap of disclosure for males who've experienced sexual trauma. Um, but to find someone that you trust, if you're not necessarily comfortable picking up the phone or going on the internet and finding a therapist right now, or maybe a close friend of yours, or a faith leader in the church, or your faith setting, whatever that may be, find someone that you can disclose this to, because you don't want the secret to continue to eat away at your life. So I'll stop talking now. I could keep going on and on. But yeah, thank you so much, Nettie and Leek, for this opportunity to be able to share.
Well, we thank you. I mean, I know your time is so valuable. I know you're working. Thank you so much. You've given us so much. I was just telling you that I just felt like I just couldn't. I felt like you have so much to kind of like unpack just with your story that I felt like I was like, I don't even know if I did anything for you on my platform. Like it was, but I'm very critical of myself, first of all, and that's probably due to my trauma, right? But I just feel like that the identity part, how often our traumas will confuse us, how often I know they've tripped me up, so whether it was sexual identity, whether it was being promiscuous, being or inward, or I went through so many different levels of that, and then each level came with another disrespect, a level of depression, like I was just all over the place. I couldn't figure out whether I was going to be angry, if I was going to be sweet, if I was going to be, you know what I'm saying, like I was just all over the place. I was just so lost. So I can definitely understand and can relate to what you're saying as far as the identity part, and the thing is, we have to choose to change the way we see ourselves. We have to choose, and sometimes you need help seeing that. Sometimes you need help doing that. And even as you said, just a year ago, you started therapy because of something you couldn't probably deal with, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes we need help with our thoughts, dissecting our thoughts. Sometimes they just run a mile a minute, and we need help, stabilizing ourselves. Our mental health is destroying people across the globe because we just don't know how to deal with it, And so thank God for platforms like this. And I hope it is encouraging to people out there that, we may go through a trauma or a struggle, but once we get over that, it's so important to share. So I thank you, because you're doing this globally, and you're speaking to men all over the world. And so we thank you for the fight that you're doing, and for the work that you're doing. Leek, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Ryan, for coming on here. It's okay. Thank you for coming on. Just talk about your experience. I know Ryan. He's like the only survivor I met in person on my way back from my friend's wedding in October. I came to his church, to see him preach. Yeah, he preached. He's dope.
If you gotta go ahead. We want to keep talking. If you gotta go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Guys,
we won't think it's
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, his story, like in the book, shout out to Echoes again, like resonated with me. I think I asked him to be a mentor, or I probably got on his nerves, because I was like just going through so much depression and suicidal thoughts. Shout out to his EMDR therapy. I'm actually in that right now. I'm probably gonna be done soon. I'm probably gonna be done soon and everything, because not a medical professional, but I do microdosing, so it's helped me a lot with like a lot of stuff, and Ron is dope. He has a book out also. I mentioned it earlier. Make sure you support him. That man can sing. He is a man of God. He's dope. Like, I'm so happy that he's been on me and Nettie platforms before, and now
recently mine was this Friday.
Make sure y'all check that out. Make sure y'all check that out on Nettie page is out, and I really appreciate Ron for his honesty and just everything. His topic, his word of the day, identity. So I really appreciate that. That's my brother. Like I said again, he's the only survivor I've met. And I believe that we can all meet more. They have a meetup coming up soon in July, I believe. Oh, I will get the wrong date. I think it's in July. It's in Washington D.C. I think I'm going to go. I think it's open to women. I was told it's open to women. Women can come.
So right, we're gonna have to go together.
Yeah, I think it's July. Is the Male Survivor Summit, Washington D.C. July the 21st to the 23rd. I believe that's still the same date and everything. I was just looking at the flyer, but Ron, I'm pretty sure Ron is going to be there. He's everywhere. And you can meet all other survivors. Make sure you guys come out. And like I said, thank you again for Ron, for being an inspiration to me, just being that voice, when I was down and out to listen to,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you.
Well, I know Sister Yvonne wanted to share her thoughts, so I want to add her also. Is she on there? Yvonne, are you available?
Yes, I
Yes, this is our closer. If y'all don't know Yvonne, you better get to know Yvonne.
Can I
tell somebody.
Can I say something real quick? I'm having a flashback for like when we was on They Take Their Choice Away, and I was running with y'all. Listen.
Yes. Man, times have flown. That's 2 years ago. You know that?
Wow.
We were all together on this platform, and man, you are doing some amazing work, my lady. You don't stop. You live, eat, breathe this stuff,
I do.
And you are like, you the truth. You are the truth. And I appreciate your posts. I'm always tagging They Took My Choice Away, the private group, with a lot of your your messages, because we often forget, man, how to treat ourselves. We often forget that it wasn't our fault, and man, boy, did we forget that it wasn't what I wore. It wasn't anything that had to do with me. It was, their perversion, of their thinking, and it's polluted and it's everywhere. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, it's so pedophilia is so prevalent, even in some of the stuff that we watching and coming across with these social media, and how they're that specific community in itself, is trying to be heard in a way that it's accepting. So come on, give me,
Ooh.
Right.
Well, hello there, Nettie. And hey there, Leek.
What's up?
How are you all doing? So, in response to your question, how do I feel about that? It angers me to no degree. Nettie, I just came across not an email. Someone sent me a clip. Something that was on Facebook about individuals trying to rename themselves that are those that are pedophiles, and they consider themselves being targeted, or they felt some kind of way at the fact that that people were referring to them as a pedophile. And the young lady that was on, she said, "Well, I want you all to understand that this isn't who we are. This is who we want to be called. This is what we want to be referred to. But everything, Nettie, everything that you described, Matt, you are a pedophile. I don't care if I get a rose, Nettie, and I call it an umbrella, Nettie, it's still a rose. I don't care if I get a piece of chicken and I call it a shoe, it's still a piece of chicken." So everything that young lady was trying to express, I'm like, no, babe, whoa, back up, babe. You're lying. Anyone that is interested in a young child, anyone who has sexual perversions toward a young child, baby, you are a pedophile. I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care how you Identify yourself. I don't care if it's on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You are a pedophile. So let the record show. Let the record show you're a pedophile, sweetheart. And because you change your name don't mean the game has changed. The name might change, but the game is still the same. You're a pedophile. Ooh, so my word today is grateful. Gratitude. On this afternoon,
Come on,
Nettie
man.
and Leek, I have so much gratitude for so many things. Oh my God. First and foremost, I have an enormous amount of gratitude for my family. My family, y'all, my family. Oh, this camera's making me go one way when I'm going the other way. But I got so much gratitude with regard to my family, who was and is and continues to be such a supportive means. I have gratitude, Nettie and Lee, with respect to my church, who is there and is very supportive. I've got gratitude for platforms such as this that is raising awareness on a regular basis as to what sexual assault is, what sexual abuse is, and what it is not. So I have gratitude. That's my word. That's my word for today. I'm filled with gratitude on today for those things among others. And I'm just going to share just a tidbit of my history and how I came to be who I am and where I am today. But before I do that, I want to give major shout outs, major applause, major thank yous, major thumb ups, major to the individuals that have preceded me on this afternoon. I've gained so much from each of you. I've learned so much from each of you, and I share a piece of each of your stories, each of your history, a part of what you have encountered, what you've gone through, how you got to where you are. A piece of that is my story as well. I am a two-time childhood. Oh, this is driving me nuts the way I'm going. I'm a two-time childhood sexual assault survivor. At the age of 8, I was molested by a trusted family friend. We just gonna say cousin, and we're gonna leave it at that. We ain't calling no names. We ain't calling out nobody, because it's not about hurting or harming. But at the age of 8, molested by a trusted family member, because today ain't play no games. She didn't just let anybody watch her kids. So she vetted this individual, and her mind, this individual was a trusted individual. So, and that happened at the age of 8. And I heard somebody say, a couple people say today, that what happens in my house stays in my house. Yeah. I grew up under that era. I grew up under that. If it happened in here and you don't share it when it happened, then when I do hear about it, you in big time trouble. But little did I know, little was I aware that didn't fall into that category. Mama didn't mean that when she made that statement and held firm on that didn't include the abuse. So as a child, as an 8-year-old, when that happened to me, and I didn't tell my mom when she came home from work, at that point, I closed it out in my mind. It was as if it never happened. I tell you, the brain has a way of protecting us. The brain has a way of shielding us from things that, we can't comprehend or understand. And it was 16, 17 years later, maybe a little longer than that, full grown, at least 23 years old, and had begun a family of my own. And I was sitting and I was watching Oprah. Well, I'm doing some cleaning, I'm sweeping, and I'm doing some stuff. And Oprah's on in the other room, and I hear her show, and I hear her talking about sexual abuse. And I'm like, I hear her talking about different things that had happened. And I'm like, all of a sudden I got a flashback. Nettie and Leek, I'll tell you, that was the most frightening thing. I can't imagine. Just flashback, quick. I'm remembering where we used to live. I'm remembering the cousin, and I'm getting flashbacks of some of the things that had happened. And these things are just happening very quick. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? It scared me to death, because I had not remembered up until then. The flashbacks were so forceful and so quick till I picked up the phone, and I remember calling my mom. I said, Mom, did we used to live? And I named where we used to live. I just said, did grandmom so-and-so used to live downstairs? And she said, yeah. I said, did Uncle so-and-so live upstairs? And she said, yeah. Dow, what's wrong? That's my nickname, y'all. She said, Dow, what are you talking about? I said, and I had to blurt it out. I had to say it real quick. I said, cousin so-and-so molested me. And then there was silence on the line. For a quick second, that seemed like eternity. She didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything. So I'm thinking then, oh my God, what is she thinking? Does she believe me? What's going on? Oh my God, am I crazy? What's going on? I later realized she was going through a very painful moment because she prided herself in keeping her children safe. She prided herself in making certain that they were safe. She prided herself in protecting her children. And she felt like, I left my child prey. Because of me, my child suffered something that I wouldn't want any mother's child to endure. I didn't know then that that's how she felt. Woo! And as time progressed, that was just the first offense at the age of 8. Some years later, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 6 years later, at the age of 14, the last Sunday in November 1975, standing on the corner of 22nd and Cambria in front of Murray's. They're no longer in existence, but in front of Murray's, I stood there. I was waiting for the bus on my way home from Big Mommy's house. From church. You know how those Sundays you go to Big Mama's house and you have that Sunday dinner. Then it was time to go home. And it was at that time I was assaulted again for the second time at the age of 14. And I remember after the assault, I remember standing on the corner waiting for the bus. And I remember after the act itself, I remember looking up. And I remember saying to God, even you don't love me. I said, even you know that I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a horrible person. I'm going to be a mean person. I'm going to be a bad person. So you're just starting this thing with me early. I'm going to be a horrible person. And even you, God, realize that. And that's why you're even allowing these things to happen to me even now at a young age. Because you see, I was born and raised in a church, and I'm still here in the church. And I've always been taught that God is a loving God. He's a just God. He's a merciful God. So surely it could not have been anything on God's end. Surely it was something about me. God is all knowing, all wise, and all of that good stuff. So as a child, I comprehended as a child. And to me, God was showing me, you're a horrible person. You're a horrible person. And that's why this is happening. But as I grew older, as I gained a better understanding, as I gained a closer, more intimate relationship with God, I came to understand, doll, that's not the truth. God loves you. And I'm grateful, not for that experience. Oh, I'd be ludicrous to say I'm grateful to have been assaulted. I'd be ludicrous to say I'm grateful that I was sexually assaulted. That would be insane, Nettie. That would be crazy, Leek. But I'm grateful because what transpired allowed me to be a mouthpiece for those that aren't able to open their mouths. Do you realize there are thousands of individuals that even now still can't face the fact of what they've endured? They still can't face the fact of what they encountered. They still are unable to come to grips with what has happened. So I pride myself on the fact that I'll be your mouthpiece. I'll talk for you. I'll advocate for you. I'll do whatever I can to make your life just a little bit easier. So I thank God. I am grateful. Yes, I am filled with gratitude. That's my word. That's my word. I'm filled with gratitude on today that I am in a position to advocate for others. And if sharing my story means I've got to revisit that place, if sharing my story means that I've got to open up some wounds, if sharing my story means I've got to relive that thing just for a moment, I'm filled with gratitude to be able to do so, so that some child's mother will not have to go through what Tudor went through. That's my mama's nickname. That some 14-year-old girl won't have to stand on a corner and feel like I caused this to happen to myself. Oh my goodness. I tell y'all, I'm grateful on today for where God has brought me from, where he has brought me from, because it was only by the grace and mercy of the Almighty that I am where I am. It's by his grace and his mercy that I've been able to rise above what I have endured. It's by God's grace and mercy, Leek. It's by his grace and mercy that I advocate for others who are not in a position to do so. So I began my nonprofit organization entitled LASA, Life After Sexual Assault. Life After Sexual Assault. And when I began it, I said, oh, I want to inspire people. I want to encourage people. I want to be a mouthpiece for people. And I began to move in that vein. But then the Me Too movement came to life. And I remember watching the Me Too movement. And I remember hearing some of the comments and some of the thoughts and some of the thoughts of those that were coming into play with regard to the Me Too movement. And all I heard was negativity. All I heard was questions that were hurled at the individual that was coming out, or individuals. All I heard was questions like, well, why did you go there? If it really happened, why did you wait so long? If it really happened, why did you go back? If it really happened, why are you just now speaking out? If it really happened, why did you dress like you were dressed? Why did you say what you said? Why did you do what you did? If it really happened, why you ain't tell somebody sooner? And with every comment that I've read, with every response that I saw, I became more and more and more and more and more and more and more enraged. I became enraged. I said, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you question the survivor? How dare you? I said, none of these questions are being asked of the perpetrator. None of these questions are being regarded or hurled at the abuser. But you want to ask the survivor why? You want to ask the survivor why? Ask the perpetrator why? Ask the culprit why? And as I began to think, I said, I know people can't be this cold-hearted. I know people can't be filled with this much ignorance. I know people can't really feel this way. And that's when I began to slightly change my agenda. So I add to it's inspiring, I add to encouraging, I put in front of that now, I want to educate. I want to educate as many people as I possibly can as to what sexual assault is. I want to educate people as much as I can, because if we come to educate people, then we'll put people like me and people who are enduring what they have endured in a better position. If we learn to educate people, then people like me won't have to bear the burden of feeling the guilt and the shame that does not belong to them. People like me will not have to continue to live a life feeling like I did something wrong. I said something wrong. I behaved in a wrong way. If we can educate people, girl, I'm about to go to church. I'm on my way to church this morning, y'all. I'm on my way to church. But if we can educate people, then we stand a better a better chance. And guess what? 95 research. Now you believe in research. Research has proven that I'm getting excited. 95% of childhood sexual assault can be prevented. Somebody asked me why. Somebody asked me why. Okay, you asked me why. So I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you how. How is it that 95% of sexual assault can be prevented? How? By education. By simply educating, we can prevent up to 95% of childhood sexual assault. Do you realize how huge a number that is? Do you realize what we can do, how we can change what's happening to our young people? By educating ourselves. And there's so many ways in which to educate ourselves. So that's the platform that I stand on today. And one way in which to educate our children, and I heard somebody say it on the day, teach them the body parts. We teach them numbers 1, 2, 3. We teach them that. We teach them colors blue, green, pink. We teach them the days of the week, Monday, Tuesday. We teach them different foods. We teach them. But when we come to talk about body parts, we'll say the pocketbook. Your vagina ain't no pocketbook. Your vagina is a vagina. We'll teach them your penis is your Mr. Man. That's what that we teach them. No, call it by its name. You call a foot, don't you? You call an arm, don't you? When you're teaching your children body parts, you teach them that the nose is a nose, right? So teach them that the breast is breast, nothing to be ashamed of, that the vagina is a vagina, the penis is a penis. Teach them that. How can that empower them? How do we educate them in that way? Because if something should happen to them, and let's say they got to go into a court of law and they say, such and such touched my pocketbook. Do you realize that takes away from the testimony of the child? Because they did not call it by the name that it really is. There's nothing wrong with teaching our children correct names for body parts. And sexual assault seems to be such, hush. We can't talk about that. We'll talk about other stuff, but we won't talk about that. The elephant is in the room, y'all. We squeezed up against the wall. We're plastered against the wall because the elephant in the room is so large, so we've got to walk around the elephant, but nobody's saying the elephant is there. The emperor has on no clothes. He's butt naked, y'all. Y'all saw it. He butt naked. He ain't got no clothes on. But nobody is pointing out the fact that the emperor has on no clothes. We've got to address the matter. We've got to call it what it is. The elephant is in the room. Sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, it's in the room, y'all. And we've got to call it by its name. We've got to bring this thing in the churches. We've got to create a platform in the churches. In the churches, what we got? We got the deacons. We got the dead fly ministry. We got the applesauce ministry. We got we need new curtain ministry. We got we need new light ministry. Well, where's the ministry that we talk about sexual assault? When do we meet to come together to address sexual assault in the church? There's so much that has happened in our churches. We've got to create a platform in our churches. So many of us are sitting in the pews broken. So many of us are sitting in the pews not healed. So many of us are sitting in the pews bleeding. But no, I'm a Sunday school teacher. I've got to just keep teaching my class. I'm a deacon. I've got to be a deacon. We've got to allow the conversation to take place in our churches. We've got to create an environment that's safe in our churches. We've got to. So I'm excited about platforms such as this. I'm excited about every opportunity that I get to share my story, because what it does for me, this is what it does for me. It allows me to put a nail in the coffin of my abuser. Now, somebody said, oh, your abuser has passed away. I don't know. I don't know if he's dead or alive. I don't know if he's walking around. I don't know. So when I say it allows me to put a nail in the coffin, what it does is allows me to kill the influence they, because it was two of them, had over me. It allows me to quiet the voices in my head that they have allowed to be there. It allows me to walk away from the guilt and the shame that they placed on my shoulders. Every time I share my story, I am healed over and over and over and over again. So although I have to revisit that place, although I have to go back there, it no longer has the power and authority over me that it once had. It no longer can do to me what it once did. It no longer causes me to be ashamed. No, bro, cousin, so-and-so, you should be ashamed. Young boy, you should be ashamed. I have no reason to be ashamed. I did nothing wrong. And if I can leave no other thought with the listening audience on today, this is the part I like when I move in closer to the screen. I come as close as I possibly can. And I want to look every individual in the eye. And I want to say to you, it was not your fault. 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 I don't care if you had something to drink. I don't care if you were butt naked walking up Broad Street in the middle of the day. I don't care. It does not matter. And this is what we've got to share in our churches. Some of our religious leaders are of the understanding that the way in which we dress could invoke such behaviors. The places we go can invoke such behaviors. And when a minister stands in the pulpit, and you know, the pulpit in many instances is maybe raised maybe an inch or two or so above the regular platform. So when that minister steps up on, I wish you could see me, steps up on that pulpit, that means he or she has risen just a little bit higher than the congregation. So the congregation then looks up to that individual because they are in an elevated position. So when they speak, many take their voices as being an authoritarian. Many take their voices as being truth. And in many instances, our ministers are uneducated. They are ignorant. And when I say ignorant, I mean no disrespect. Ignorant just means that they're not aware. They're not in the knowledge of. That's all ignorant means. Many of them are ignorant. And in their ignorance, they don't realize that they're causing further trauma to the congregants. They're causing further trauma to those that have suffered abuse. Because when the preacher says from the pulpit, you shouldn't have went there, baby. You went there 2 o'clock in the morning. You shouldn't have went there. I don't care if it was 12 o'clock midnight. I don't care if it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Nobody signs up for rape. How ridiculous is that? So we've got to educate, not just lay people, we've got to educate our church folk, our clergy as well. So I thank you all for this opportunity. I hope I didn't go over time. I thank you all that I am just grateful. I am so filled with gratitude for my children who, when I came out, when I shared to them, have been extremely supportive every step step of the way. TJ, Skip, Andy, Pumpkin, Ashley, Katoya, and Lily. Yep, that's the 7 wonders of my world. And they have been so very supportive of me along this journey. And for that, I have gratitude. I'm grateful and filled with gratitude for knowing that it wasn't my fault. I'm grateful to be able to stand in the stead of others and share my story. And it is my hope that by my sharing, someone else is inspired, encouraged, but more than anything else, I pray that you have become educated. Leek and Nettie, thank you much for allowing me this space and opportunity. Thank you.
Girl, you gave us more than we could chew.
Woo.
Man, and this is why we needed you to be last. You had to close us out right. And yeah, we definitely our gratitude is that you even were willing. You were so willing to be a part of this, and we had to have you because you're doing the work. You're doing the groundwork. And you really your whole platform have taken off. It's taken off in places you probably didn't even expect, girl. Like, I know. I mean, it's not an easy it's not easy to have to hear other people's stories, and even so, and most times it's even worse than what we went through, and it's like, how do you stay on topic without getting so emotional, and you've I know that you're whole and you're healed, and yeah, you still talk about that you have triggers, but you are managing them well. And so I just wanted an opportunity for people to see that there is a vision at the end of this.
Yeah.
There is purpose at the end of, a traumatic experience, and we are all living it, and just wanted to give an opportunity for people to see what that looks like. And you got it all over you. Favors all over you.
The grace of God. It's the grace and mercy of the Almighty.
Don't I know it? Leek, you want to add?
Yes, Missy Yvonne. I was in the background just
you had everybody screaming.
I was like, what? Thank you for your word of the day, gratitude. Anybody that's listening, I think of the song by Brandon Lake called Gratitude. So I was singing that in the background while you was just speaking. Guys, please listen to that song. Gratitude is a dope song. I thank you. This is I feel like I said, this is like deja vu when we all did this on Nettie platform. They took my choice away, and you just brought it home. Your story is amazing. The work that you are doing is amazing. I like when you said, I think you said there's people in the pew and they're broken. Wow, that just don't nobody speak about it, but you're speaking about it. You're raising awareness, and I appreciate you and love you so much. And thank you. You had me over here like I was in church. I was like, yes, clap. You think I wasn't on camera? It was just you, because they were just like, yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this space and this place of healing and transparency. It's people like you that are allowing other people to gain their voice. It's in there somewhere. And even if they can't express it, they can come here. And even if they never tell anybody else, they go and get counseling, and then they're made whole and made better. So I thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Well, the one thing I didn't say to everybody that blessed the platform today for our panelists, but if you guys can go back to the comments in this section and at least put all your information in there. I know you're part of that group. You created that group, LASA. Can you just explain that again and how they can find you?
Sure. LASA is Life After Sexual Assault. And I realized one day that it is life. At one point, I thought it was all over. This is the be all that ends all. I am what happened to me. It was my fault. I can just forget it. At the age of 15, what? and the Holy Ghost. I don't know if y'all know about the Holy Ghost, but enabled me to know that there is life. Doll, you don't have to stop your life right now. There is life after sexual assault. And right now, Life After Sexual Assault is a one-man show. It's just me. It's just me being me. But it is my hope that it will grow more and more. And on my page, on my personal page, I often post information regarding sexual assault. This month is SAM, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And one of the things that we're doing each month, I try to have an initiative. This initiative for this month is Educate Yourself. Educate yourself. And I'm putting up different things and ways in which you can educate yourself. So right now, the best way to reach me, and I'm willing to put my number out there. The best way to reach me is via phone, 215-992-2371. That's me. That's me, y'all. Facebook, those sort of things. I'm available, willing, and eager to come and be at whatever openings or whatever platform that you may have that I might share my story. I don't charge anything. I might need coffee to get there. It might be one of them kind of things, but I charge nothing. I enjoy sharing. So I look forward to hearing from anyone who may be interested in my coming to your event to share my story.
Well, y'all heard it. Y'all heard it from Yvonne's mouth that she will be coming to you. Wow. I'm not kicking you off, so if you want to leave, that's fine. I kind of want to redeem myself.
Come on, girl. Come on, girl.
I had a little fluke. I don't know what happened.
Nerves gets the best of us, girl.
It does. And I should just be over that. Like, and I'm not going to let it defeat me. So I'll just try another piece. It's called Blueprint. And I think it's kind of appropriate for this. All I ever needed in my whole life was love, security, validation. I mean, tell me something more than what my mother or father have told me. Don't you just get it? Doesn't anyone get it? The blueprint of my expectations came thousands of years ago, and he lived among us. And yet he had to leave where he was from because no one could see who he was beyond his earthly figure. Perhaps no one can see me past my earthly shortcomings, and their expectations of me speaks the way they look at me. But nothing will deter me from going out and be who he has called me to be, which is blessed and highly favored, unique, made in his image and in his likeness. It's no wonder while evil lurks to smother the light, it can't endure any kind of light, let alone my light. I shine brighter than the sun rays that grace my face, and brighter than any bright sunny days, brighter than any beautiful moonlights on any given day. And you too should feel this way. Our complexities are only complex to each other, but the master link, the Messiah, designer of all our blueprints, our very existence, our way of being was all designed with one purpose in mind: to share our light with him in mind. Thank you.
I
don't know why I didn't open up.
I loved it. I loved it. I've always enjoyed your expression and how the way in which you present and the material that you share. I love it. Awesome as always, Nettie. Nettie the poet.
Daddy D poetry.
Yeah.
Well, I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who joined, the panelists, everybody who participated, even viewing this. All we ask is that you share, because you never know who it's going to bless. You just never know who it's going to free and what hope it provides. Brought to you by NettieLongPoetry. They took my choice away. And Leek Monroe, like mental health check-in with Talik Podcast, presented to you today. What is the word for today? Everybody had a word. They blessed us. Till next time. We'll see you
next time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Stay
Bye.
pleased up. Stay blessed.